Outside, the wind had picked up. Not enough to rattle anything, but enough to send a thin dust spiral curling across the yard. And somewhere inside that breeze, he could hear it, faint, distant, but unmistakable. The sound of a horse riding hard. He suddenly felt exposed, standing there with 3 mysterious foals and a note reading, "Don't let them fall into the wrong hands." He tightened his grip on the little one in his arms and whispered, "What in the world have you kids brought to my doorstep?" The sound of hoofs faded, but Cole's pulse didn't settle. He set the foal down gently and moved to close the barn doors again, sliding the latch into place. It wasn't much protection, but it was something. When he turned back, the 3 foals had huddled together again, shivering slightly. The smallest one let out a faint, sad squeak. Cole softened. "All right. First things first. You're hungry." He filled a shallow trough with warm milk replacer and watched as the foals approached timidly. They drank awkwardly, struggling to coordinate their movements. Whatever they weren't used to human care. Maybe not even used to captivity. As they fed, Cole leaned against the wall, rubbing his jaw. Questions ran circles in his head. Who left them? Why here? Why him? The ranch was remote, sure, but not a secret. If someone was trying to hide these foals, they'd picked a man with a reputation for keeping to himself, minding his own business, and helping when help was needed. But that line in the note, "They're the last ones," that pulled at something deeper. Cole had grown up hearing stories. Old Western lore about a wild herd that roamed the plains long before fences carved up the land. Horses unlike any others. Harder to catch. Smarter. Almost mythical. Some claimed their bloodline had died out. Others whispered they were driven underground, hidden away by people who didn't want their power exploited. Most folks dismissed those tales as campfire chatter. But the foals standing in his barn, they looked like the stories. The wind whistled again outside, brushing against the barn in a low, unsettling hum. The kind of sound that tells you trouble is near even if you don't see it yet. Cole exhaled slowly. "Well," he said to the foals, "looks like we're all stuck together now." One of them lifted its tiny head, ears perked, as if understanding every word. Cole rested his hand on the stall door, that crinkled note still burning in his pocket. The day had only just begun, but he already knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary sunrise, or an ordinary week. These 3 little strangers were about to pull him into something far bigger, far older, and far more dangerous than anyone in Dust Haven had seen in decades. And the worst part? Whoever left them behind might not be far away. He glanced again at the barn door. Something told him this mystery was just getting warmed up. By mid-morning, the quiet hum of Dust Haven had settled into its usual rhythm. Wagons rattled down Main Street, the telegraph office clacked out half-legible messages, and the smell of black coffee drifted from the diner beside the sheriff's office. For most folks, it was an ordinary day. For Cole Mathers, it felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. The 3 foals were bedded down in the barn, wrapped in blankets he normally used for newborn calves. They slept uneasily, twitching as if dreaming of places they'd already lost. Cole had locked the barn twice, checked the windows, and set up a lantern in the corner just in case anyone tried sneaking around. He wasn't paranoid by nature, but that note kept echoing in his mind. "They're the last ones. Don't let them fall into the wrong hands." He drove into town because he needed answers, and because there were only 2 people he trusted to look at something this strange without making a circus out of it: Sheriff Tuck Ramsey and Dr. Marlene Holt, the local vet. Dust Haven wasn't a large town, but it had a way of feeling older than it was. Wooden storefronts leaned slightly, like they'd grown tired but refused to fall. People nodded at Cole as he passed. Most folks liked him. A few feared him. All respected him. He was a man of few words and fewer excuses. He found Marlene in her clinic, reorganizing a shelf stacked with medicine bottles and dusty anatomy books. "Marlene," he said, closing the door behind him. She turned, raising an eyebrow. "Well now. You don't come in here unless something's either dying or about to be born. Which is it today?" Cole hesitated. Neither. I think. She squinted. That a joke? No. Marlene sighed, dusting off her hands. All right then. What's going on? Cole took a slow breath. I need you to come out to the ranch and look at some foals. Some? She repeated. Plural? 3. Her eyebrows shot up. 3? Cole, it's not even birthing season yet. I know. Who's Mares? That's the thing, he said, voice low. They're not mine. Marlene straightened. Then whose are they? I don't know. She stared at him a moment, weighing whether he was joking. Cole didn't joke. Not about something like this. All right, she said finally. I'll grab my kit. As they headed outside, the sheriff's door swung open across the street, and Tuck Ramsey stepped onto the boardwalk, chewing on the stub of a toothpick like it owed him money. His eyes narrowed when he spotted Cole. Mornin', Mathers, Tuck called. You look like a man carrying more weight than his horse can handle. Cole exchanged a glance with Marlene. She nodded subtly. Tell him. Sheriff, Cole said, walking over. I need a word. Something wrong on the ranch? Maybe. Or maybe I'm imagining things. Hard to say. Tuck pulled the toothpick from his mouth. Cole, you're many things, but imaginative isn't one of them. Spit it out. Cole lowered his voice. Someone left 3 foals in my barn last night. No tracks. No noise. And a note telling me to protect them. Tuck's face stilled. Who would leave a note like that? Someone in a hurry. Tuck rubbed his chin. Foals don't just fall from the sky. You say they're small? Real small. How small? Smaller than any horse I've worked with. And their markings. Cole shook his head. They don't match any breed I've ever seen. That made Tuck pause. He was a man who'd seen every odd animal and stranger that drifted through these parts. For him to stiffen meant something. You bringing Marlene to look at them? I am. Tuck nodded once. I'll swing by afternoon. Don't touch anything else until then. And keep those foals inside. If someone hid them there, someone else might come looking. Cole didn't like the sound of that, but he didn't argue. If Tuck was worried, something real was at play. The drive back to the ranch was quiet. Marlene watched the landscape roll past, her brow furrowed. Cole, she said eventually, just how strange are these foals? You'll see. Stranger than the Eaton twins' mule cross from last spring? Much. Stranger than that deformed Mustang we found with the twisted ears. Much stranger. She folded her arms. Lord help us. When they reached the ranch, Ginger was pacing outside the barn, ears pinned back. The moment Cole opened the barn door, the foals stirred, tiny heads poking up like flowers waking to light. Marlene stepped into the stall and froze. Well, she whispered. I'll be damned. She knelt beside the first foal, running her hand along its spine. Her expression flickered through confusion, curiosity, disbelief. Cole, these aren't normal newborns. Their bone structure is different. Their joints are underdeveloped, but their reflexes are too fast. And this one's coat pattern. She leaned closer. I've only ever seen something like this in old illustrations. Cole met her gaze. The old frontier stories? Exactly. She moved to the smallest foal, brushing a finger through its silver-tinted mane. Do you know what this looks like? I'm afraid to guess. A star-marked lineage horse. Cole exhaled. So she saw it too. According to legend, those horses were the pride of the early tribes and explorers. Swift. Smart. Elusive. A bloodline that faded when ranching spread and the open plains shrank. Scholars said the stories were exaggerated. Ranchers said the bloodline died out. Kids heard them in bedtime tales. But now 3 tiny descendants were curled up in Cole's barn. How is that possible? He murmured. Marlene stood slowly. Either someone is breeding them in secret, or these are the last survivors of something we all assumed was gone. The weight of that hit Cole harder than he expected. It made the note suddenly seem less dramatic and more like a warning carved from desperation. Protect them. The last ones? Marlene reached for her medical bag. I'll run some deeper checks, but so far they seem healthy. Fragile, but strong where it counts. Whoever had them before didn't mistreat them. But they were moved recently. Far. They smell like sagebrush and cold river water. That's not local Cole. Not by a long shot. Before Cole could respond, Ginger let out a sharp, piercing call. The kind she only made when danger was near. Cole and Marlene rushed outside. A dust cloud was rising on the ridge to the east. Riders. Not one. Not two. Three. Moving in a tight formation, not toward town, not toward the main trail. Toward the ranch. Marlene's face drained of color. Cole, tell me you're expecting company. I'm not. Then who are they? Cole felt the note in his pocket like it was burning through the fabric. Someone who knows exactly what's in my barn. The riders were still far, but the sun glinted off something on their saddles. Metal. Harness gear that didn't look local. Their pace was steady, not rushed, but deliberate. Hunters. Trackers. Maybe worse. Marlene swallowed. What do we do? Cole took a step back toward the barn, gaze hardening. We keep the foals out of sight. Lock the barn. And whatever happens next, we don't let those men near them. Inside the barn, the foals huddled together again, sensing the tension in the air. Cole gently placed a hand on one of their tiny backs. You're safe here, he said, though he wasn't sure it was true. Because out on that ridge, 3 unknown riders were closing in, kicking up dust like a warning of their own. And in their shadow, the old myth of the vanished herd was rising again. Cole didn't know what was coming. But something told him the peaceful life he once had was slipping away faster than a wild horse in open country. And protecting the foals. That was only the beginning. By late afternoon, the dust trail left behind by the 3 riders had faded from the ridge, but Cole Mather's nerves hadn't. The strangers hadn't approached the ranch directly. They lingered along the outskirts, weaving in slow arcs like wolves testing a fence line. Watching. Measuring. Waiting for something. Then, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned the color of old brass, they vanished. No trace. No hoofbeats. No dust cloud. Just gone. Cole didn't like that one bit. Inside the barn, the foals were restless. Their tiny hooves shuffled anxiously against the straw, and every so often they'd chirp, then fall into a strained silence. Animals always felt danger before humans did. And these foals, as strange and delicate as they were, seemed to understand the threat better than any grown horse. Sheriff Tuck arrived just after dusk, lantern in hand, his horse Midnight snorting uneasily beside him. Those riders, Tuck said as he dismounted. Saw them heading toward the canyon around 6 o'clock. They weren't locals. Cole folded his arms. I figured that. No brands I recognized. And the way they rode, organized. Military, almost. Tuck's voice dropped. Not cowhands. Not drifters. Men with a mission. Cole exchanged a glance with Marlene, who'd been sitting by the stall with the foals most of the afternoon. Marlene thinks they might be connected to whoever left these little ones here. I didn't say that, she corrected. I said it's possible. Possible, Cole repeated dryly. Well, possible is enough to make my skin crawl. Tuck set the lantern on a hook inside the barn and crouched near the foals. They stared at him with wide, glassy eyes, their breathing shaky. Lord Almighty, Tuck whispered. They look like something out of those old stories my granddad used to tell. We've been thinking the same, Marlene said. Tuck ran a hand along one foal's tiny shoulder. This coat pattern, this ain't natural. Or if it is, it's ancient. Cole stepped forward. So what do you figure? Someone breeding a lost bloodline? Or someone hunting the last of it? Tuck didn't answer right away. He stood slowly, dusted off his hands, and gave Cole a level look. I think whatever's going on, you stepped into it without asking to. And those riders out there, they're not gonna walk away empty-handed. Cole felt anger rise, sharp and sudden. Then they'll leave disappointed. Careful, Tuck warned. Men like that don't handle no for an answer. The barn fell quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the world is holding its breath. Marlene finally spoke. We need to figure out where these foals came from. No animal shows up like this. Someone raised them. Someone hid them. And someone was desperate enough to drop them off in the middle of the night. And whoever it was, Cole added, they wanted me to protect them. Tuck gave him a sideways glance. Or they wanted to drag you into their mess. Cole shrugged. Too late for second thoughts. The sheriff rubbed his jaw. They'll come back. Folks don't ride like that for sightseeing. Marlene shivered. I don't want to be here when they do. You won't be, Cole said quickly. I'm not dragging you further into this. Marlene shot him a glare. Cole, I'm already in it. And if these foals are what I think they are, they're worth saving. Cole nodded. She was right. Then, as if sensing the shift in tension, the smallest foal let out a soft chirp. Not frightened. Not distressed. More like a call. And then Cole heard it, low at first, almost hidden beneath the wind. A distant, steady thrum. Hoofbeats. Approaching from the west this time. Tuck grabbed the lantern. Lights out. Cole snuffed the barn lamps while Marlene ushered the foals into the back corner of the stall. Ginger, sensing trouble, positioned herself defensively in front of them, ears pinned tight. They listened. The hoofbeats grew louder then slowed. Whoever was out there wasn't rushing. They were searching. Tuck peeked through a crack in the barn wall. Another rider. Not from the group earlier. This one's alone. Cole's heart tightened. Friend or foe? No way to tell yet. The rider's silhouette stopped a few yards from the barn. He dismounted slowly, boots landing softly in the dirt. Whoever he was, he knew how to move without drawing attention. Then a voice carried through the darkness, low but steady. Cole Mathers. I know you're in there. Cole stiffened. Tuck mouthed. You know him? Cole shook his head. The stranger continued. Don't be alarmed. I'm not here to take anything from you. That was exactly what someone who wanted to take something would say. Cole stepped forward, but Tuck gripped his arm. Don't. But Cole wasn't the type to hide behind a barn door while a stranger called his name. He unlatched the barn and stepped outside, staying in the shadows. State your business, Cole said. The lantern on the stranger's saddle flickered, revealing pieces of his face, sunburned skin, dark beard, a single long scar cutting from temple to jaw. Hard to read. Harder to trust. My name is Ryland Creed, he said. I need to speak with you. It's about the foals. Cole's pulse sharpened. How do you know about them? Ryland didn't step closer. He held his ground, hands visible, showing he wasn't reaching for a weapon. Because, he said softly, I'm the one who wrote the note. The barn behind Cole seemed to exhale all at once. Tuck moved out, gun drawn low, not aiming yet, but not trusting either. You left them in my barn? Cole asked. Ryland nodded once. I didn't know where else to go. They needed a place the hunters wouldn't think to look. Hunters, Tuck repeated. So those men on the ridge are tracking the bloodline, Ryland finished. And they won't stop until they have all of them. Cole stepped forward. Why here? Why me? Because you're known for taking care of what others throw away. And because you're isolated. I figured you'd buy us time. Us? Marlene echoed from the barn doorway. Ryland hesitated. For the first time, his voice cracked under strain. My sister. She helped raise the herd. When the hunters came, she didn't make it out. The pain in his tone made even Cole pause. I grabbed the 3 youngest, Ryland continued. The rest were taken. I've been running ever since. And they're close now. Too close. Cole crossed his arms. What do they want with them? Ryland looked him dead in the eye. Control. These foals are the last surviving link to a lineage that's smarter and faster than any horse alive. Imagine a warhorse that never tires. Imagine a mount that can outrun Gunfire, cross terrain no normal animal could. Whoever controls them, controls the frontier. Cole felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Tuck lowered his gun slightly. You're saying they want to weaponize horses? I'm saying they already started, Rylan replied. And these three are the only ones born free. A long silence followed. Wind whispered across the ranch, carrying the first hints of night frost. Cole finally spoke. If I help you, what happens next? Rylan's expression hardened. Next, we keep them hidden. Then we find the herd. Then we break the hunter's trail before they break us. Marlene stepped forward. And if we don't help? Rylan's jaw tightened. Then the hunters will come here. And they will burn your ranch down to the last fence post to get what they're after. Cole didn't flinch. Let them try. Tuck shot him a look. Don't tempt the devil, Cole. Rylan's eyes softened, just a fraction. You don't understand. They're already on their way. As he said it, Ginger screamed from inside the barn. Not in pain. In warning. The ground trembled under Cole's boots. Hoofbeats. Dozens. Maybe more. Approaching fast. Rylan whirled toward the dark horizon. They found us. Cole felt every muscle in his body lock into place. This was no longer a mystery story or a strange morning surprise. This was the start of a fight. And the hunters, whoever they were, weren't coming quietly. They were coming to claim what they believed belonged to them. And they weren't far. Not far at all. The sun had barely climbed over the jagged spines of Gunsmoke Ridge when Colt Dawson pressed his boots into the dust, listening to the wind whistle like a warning across the canyon. Dawn spread in streaks of copper and dull gold, lighting the rocks like the battlefield of an old world that had forgotten peace. His horse, Ember, pawed at the dirt, restless with a sense she could not name, but Colt knew the truth behind her trembling. Something was coming. Something big. Something fatal. The night before, when the sky had turned bruised purple, Colt heard riders far off in the valley, the clatter of hooves, the bawling yells of men who carried whiskey, arrogance, and rifles with the same grip. They were moving closer with each hour. And even though he had outrun gunfighters, bounty men, and a vengeful sheriff across 6 states, he knew this new hunt was different. This was personal. These men weren't after money. They were after retribution. Colt pushed down the brim of his worn hat and walked toward the edge of the ridge. Below, the desert stretched as far as the eye could see, smoldering under the rising sun, dotted with thorn brush and scattered bones of long-dead cattle. Somewhere out there, crossing the plain with the determination of wolves, was Jasper Blackthorn and his gang. Jasper. Once a friend. Once a brother in arms. Now a man shaped only by greed and fury. But it wasn't Jasper's rage that haunted Colt. It was the reason behind it. The letter Jasper had received. The lie someone had fed him. The rumor that Colt had betrayed him in the Arizona raid. Colt had tried sending word, tried finding Jasper before the fire grew too high, but Jasper refused to listen. And now Jasper rode with 12 men, all of them hungry for Colt's blood. Ember flicked her ears back, and Colt turned. A soft rustle came from the tents behind him. Elara stepped out, wrapped in a wool blanket, her face painted in the pale light of dawn. Her hair, dark as midnight river water, fell loose over her shoulders. You didn't sleep, she said quietly, pulling the blanket tighter. Didn't need to, Colt replied. You heard them again? Closer than last night. Her jaw tightened. Colt, you can't keep staying ahead forever. They won't stop. I know. Elara walked until she was beside him, her boots crunching on the gravel. Her eyes searched the horizon, the same direction Colt had been looking. She wasn't afraid of danger. She'd grown up fighting it. But the idea of losing Colt, that shook her in ways Gunfire never could. You could leave, Colt said. Head east. Follow the river to Crane's Crossing. No one would track you. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. Not today. Not ever. You're not fighting this alone. Colt gave a thin, tired smile. Figured you'd say something stubborn like that. And you love me for it. That I do. The wind carried the distant echo of a horn. Colt stiffened. Ember snorted sharply. That's a scout signal, Colt muttered. They're spreading out. Elara swallowed hard. We should move. We will, Colt said. But first I got something to settle. He walked to the saddlebag tied to a weathered post. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a gun he rarely used. Not for lack of skill. He was deadly with it. But because of what it represented. When he unwrapped it, Elara saw the polished steel, the long barrel engraved with thorn-shaped etchings. Is that? She began. Yeah. Jasper's father gave it to me the night Jasper and I became deputized under the old marshal. Said it was for the one who'd keep Jasper safe. Colt's expression darkened. Funny how things turn. Elara stepped closer. Maybe he needs to see it again. Maybe it'll remind him who you are. Maybe, Colt whispered. Or maybe it's the last thing he sees. They packed quickly. Colt strapped the rifle, ammunition, rations, and a canteen onto Ember's saddle. Elara mounted her spotted gray mare, Whisper. The horses shifted nervously as another echo of hooves rolled through the canyon. Colt led them away from the ridge and toward a narrow trail snaking down to the valley floor. Every shadow seemed alive. Every rock felt like an ambush. Colt's senses sharpened. He counted seconds between sounds, measured distances between echoes, tracked the shifting dust plumes in the distance. Halfway down the trail, they reached an outcrop that offered a view of the northern pass. Colt halted Ember and raised his rifle. Elara followed his gaze. Across the plain, framed by pillars of desert rock, 12 riders formed a line. And at the center, atop a coal-black stallion, was Jasper Blackthorn. Jasper's hat cast a shadow over his face, but Colt could see the shape of his mouth, set in a grim, murderous line. His gang fanned out behind him, rifles glinting. Elara inhaled sharply. They found us. No, Colt murmured. They want us to know they found us. Jasper raised his hand. One of his riders fired a single shot into the air. The sound cracked across the open desert. Forcing our hand? Colt said. What now? Elara asked. Colt exhaled slowly. We run west. Toward the canyons. If we make it through, they can't surround us. And if we don't? Then it's the end of the road. They turned their horses sharply and kicked off into a gallop. Dust plumed behind them as they raced across the desert floor. Jasper shouted orders, and his men surged forward like a breaking wave. The chase thundered across the plains, hoofs pounding the earth in a deadly race. Colt fired backward once, hitting a rider's hat clean off, forcing the man to break. Elara loosed a shot that clipped another horse's reins, sending the rider tumbling. But Jasper didn't slow. His stallion cut through the chaos like a blade, gaining ground with terrifying speed. The canyon walls rose ahead, towering slabs of stone that cast long shadows. Colt and Elara charged into the entrance just as Jasper's bullets sparked off the rocks around them. Inside the canyon, the path narrowed. The walls closed tight. The sound of hooves and gunfire bounced in all directions, turning the world into a thunderous tunnel of echoing violence. Colt looked ahead. A fallen boulder blocked half the path. Not enough room for 2 riders. He knew what he had to do. Elara! He shouted. Take the left. Ride hard. Don't stop. What about you? I'll slow them down. No, she cried. Colt! He pulled Ember to a skid and turned her sideways, raising the rifle as dust swirled around him. Elara's mare bolted through the gap, disappearing deeper into the canyon. Jasper's gang stormed in like a storm front. Colt braced himself, heart pounding, eyes steady. Come on then, he whispered. Let's finish this. The canyon shuddered with the force of charging horses as Colt faced down 11 armed riders, the shadow of Jasper Blackthorn looming behind them like a ghost from a past he could no longer outrun. And the gunfire began.